Okay, so moving on to, are there any aspects about this work that are different from what you initially imagined?
Yes.
And so what are the differences, and how did you manage this difference in what you expected and what you experienced?
Okay, so initially I thought I was going to go commercial. I studied the commercial strand of fashion design. Can't remember what the diploma was. The diploma of applied arts and fashion design. The first year, your custom and commercial strand did it, and then after that, it's commercial. I always thought I was going to go commercial, work, do a small factory, but have that. And when I started doing that, because most of it I didn't have the machinery for all the machinery for the activewear, so I would source that out to our workers. I then decided I hated that, and that's when I went into bridal. So it was completely opposite. So it's custom, it's personalised, it's interacting with an individual. As the other one, I was very lonely. There was very little interaction. There was absolutely almost no artistic design scope, anything like that. What was the question again?
So what kind of clothes were you making in that side of it?
And the activewear.
Oh, so that was the when you were doing the activewear.
Yeah.
So from activewear to bridal, was that
a complete difference?
Yeah, exactly.
But the activewear has actually helped with especially with some of the bridal now, because it's stretch, it's see-through stretch.
Okay, so that has skilled you in doing. So you have used that. Some
of that skill.
A lot of that. Oh yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, that knowledge and skill has been able to transfer. Yeah. So my question was, okay, so you're doing activewear.
Sorry, I get
no, that's okay. So you're doing activewear.
Yes.
It wasn't what you thought it would be. It was light. It sounded like
it was lonely. It was.
And from hearing everything else about you, that is not who you are.
No.
And
it was minimal. It was so minimal. It was so boring. And there was nothing that was like what I'd say special, like the occasional sparkly leotard.
Inspiration, like you, because you said before that you see things around you that inspires you, and you can't really put butterflies on or feathers or look around and laces.
But in that industry there is a very small limited, like I guess I could have unless you're doing like for dance or it was very boring. And I was competing against Nike and Adidas and Lorna Jane and Rockwear and all those, and like at the time Nike was then being made in like Bangladesh or Argentina or something like that. And it was just really hard to, like the profit margins. I was working on mass production to do profit margins, and it was you couldn't survive on it because I wanted to keep it Australian made. It just wasn't made. And a lot of those factories don't even exist now.
Which is a good thing.
Well, it's not, because like Lorna Jane.
Oh, I'm talking about so when I said a lot of factories, I'm talking about the ones overseas.
So for instance, like there were a lot of machinists throughout Brisbane and the Gold Coast that did Lorna Jane. Rockwear was done by Adam Rock. He was originally an instructor, I think. Was done here in Helensvale.
Okay.
So they don't. So they
just don't exist anymore in Australia. Well,
no, and they would have had to have moved it out, and they had to put, and when you, and the thing is, you look, and I wear Lorna Jane all the time when I do my Pilates, and you're paying like $120 reduced for a pair of leggings, and you know what the margin is, the markup is, but I'm happy to pay that because I never want to have to make a pair of leggings. Ever.
So that's encourage you to go and buy them.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so.
And how did I overcome it? Was it the?
And what did you expected? What is the difference?
Oh, yeah.
How did you manage this difference in what you expected and what? So how did you manage the difference? So it
happened gradually. Yeah. So managing the different happened gradually through my experiences. So if something bad or good happened, I would then evaluate things and going, okay, if this happens again, how would I deal with it? And I always think ahead, thinking, so like planning, so not being negative, but going, okay, you insure your house for fire and things like that. You don't want it to happen, but you plan for it. So if this could happen, or if that could happen again, or maybe this could happen, what can I do to rectify it? If a client, when they come in, decides to change a style. I have different ideas,
Mm-hmm.
or slightly different way. I have different ideas in my head, so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not rushing them with ideas, so that they become overwhelmed and they're worried.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mm-hmm. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is you're able to pretty much assess
yes,
along the way.
Yep.
It's not like just go blind,
no,
straight ahead, and then all of a sudden, whoa, here I am. It's
No.
not what I want to do. So
No.
you tweak and morph and adjust
absolutely.
and making
Yep.
sure. So
And then in the end, you write down your pros and cons.
yeah.
Which is actually what I did in the very beginning when you and Caesar approached me. Was I wrote down, do I want to go into this industry again? And I wrote down what I didn't like about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote down what I loved about it. And there were more things I liked about it. And the other things I didn't like about it were things that I was able to change because it was more to do with the client not being happy with it. Okay, if it was that reason, what could I do to fix it? So it's having so that, you know, the resolution for that sort of thing, and the fact that I love this, and then do this, and then something new might happen. And there's still something that will just throw you a curveball. But generally, you can go back and have a look. Okay, if this sort of thing happens, then, or if, say, client's very quiet. Okay. And I think they're really quiet, but I just check to see are they really quiet, or are they not happy with it? You know, sort of get it out from them. And have the contract. I still don't think I've answered the question, but I've now got
that's okay.
I've now got a contract in place, so it actually has everything in there. It's sent to them on their quotes. It's sent to them on their invoice, so they can't say they haven't got it. And it even states, please call me to discuss it if they've got any questions.
You have answered the question, and I'll tell you why. Because you know, how did you manage these differences? So what I'm hearing is you knew what you wanted, as in you wanted to be creative.
Yes.
You wanted to give people an experience, and you absolutely value relationships and that experience. So you're saying, so you put place steps in place.
Yes.
You're always reassessing where you are, and then saying, am I meeting those expectations that I want out of this? I
still reassess even now.
And
I'm analysing all the time. I will analyse certain things, like how did that conversation? So how did that initial consult go? Could there have been ways I could have improved on it? What did I do, or what did I say that I could do better next time?
And would you say that you're open to opportunities? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you don't just, no, that's not my field, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Actually, no, there are some things. So, not so much. No, I've realised now that it is actually okay to say no.
Yeah.
In the past, trying to please them and that, but after having, say, a bad experience with something, and trying something that, yes, I know I can do, but it's not really in my field, as in like making a coat for a particular person, and going, yeah, I did this in the past, we do it, but then you've got to buy different materials when you're doing the coat properly, like a tailored coat, and going, there was a little bit of creativity because it was like an anime coat, so we had like, going back to my fantasy range, I showed them and we did bits of that detail on the back, but ultimately it was boring. It was just so boring. Besides doing that little bit of detailing, and I've just decided I'm just going to stick with what I absolutely love and just keep going that way. So now I do, but instead of saying no, I won't do it, I just say, look, I'm sorry, I'm actually booked out. Don't let
they're not going to hear this. This is way too long for them to put this in, but that's okay. Okay, no, that's good. So what I'm hearing is that you know what you want.
Yes.
And that has developed over time, and going back to what you thought you liked, having that experience, well, actually, no.
If it's a bad, so if it's a bad experience, as in like, say, just an individual client, I will analyse it, and I'll analyse it with close friends, with my husband, to see whether it's something that was my fault, or something that I could have helped avoid, what I could do in the future so it doesn't happen again.
So it sounds like there's a lot of reflection as well, which is really important for you to be able to move forward.
Actually, not just reflection on their character, but also on their outfit too. I take lots of photos and different angles of their dress, and I leave it for a week or so. They get a copy of all the photos. I leave it for about a week or so, and then when I'm actually going to that next step, I actually look at the photos and analyse to see what is it that I could have missed at the fitting. So I'm analysing each photo when I'm actually at that next step of their dress as well.
But I'm also hearing that you reflect the experience itself, not just the end product. Reflect on okay, well, they had a good experience, or I'm just trying to think of an example. Like if they bring a friend along and that's not necessarily a great experience, so you evaluate that and how can you make sure that it's that you're moving forward all the time. That's what I'm always hearing from you as well. So reflection in the whole experience, and even reflecting on how does this fit in my family. Like now I'm hearing you reflect on, okay, my health needs to be improved. So it sounds like that is an important part of your processes as well, to ensure that you
I've realised that I think with where I am, with what I've achieved now with my career, I feel like I don't, not that I don't have to work as hard, I work smarter, not that I do work, you know, and it's not that I wasn't smarter before, like, but you had to work harder. I felt like I did, because you had to do a lot of it yourself, because we didn't want to get in debt. You know. And then again, that fell back to if too much happened too quickly, my anxiety, and then I would just wouldn't be able. I just like I can't. When the anxiety hits, you just your mind's just blank. You just.
So you know that's who you are.
Yes.
And you have to put strategies in place.
Yes.
To work with that, not against it.
Yeah, but now that I'm at the other end where I can actually enjoy a normal work home, like work professional, whatever, recreational, and I can now spend more time with family, with friends, exercising, which I love. Can't do my favourite sport anymore, but finding substitutes that are really good outlets. And actually having me time. I used to think I couldn't have me time because it wasn't that I didn't deserve it. It was more like either I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't allowed to have me time, and now I love my me time. I go and even pamper myself and stuff, which I would never have done in the past.
I was just thinking like past Helena probably wouldn't.
Oh no, past Helena would absolutely be disgusted with present Helena wearing pyjamas all day.
But present Helena's loving it.
Oh, so present Helena's loving it, yes.
Okay, this is my last question that I have to ask.
When there's no clients, that's pyjamas all day when there's no one around.
Oh good, so you do wear clothes?
Yes.
Excellent. That's good to know. Okay, so what advice would you give someone who is considering this career? Now, I'd like to take it back to someone who's starting out in this career, and
I've got some really good point forms for that.
And moving, let's start with that. Yep. Someone who's considering this career. Now, I think there's two aspects to that. It's someone who's young, who is just starting their career, and then maybe someone who's a bit older who knows himself better and moving into changing. I don't know. So either way.
So doing the younger one, well, both of them can work with this, but doing the younger one, I know one of the things that, because I was going into activewear then, I actually got in contact with somebody who was in that industry and they were getting out of it. And I listened to everything that she had to say. I absorbed it like a sponge. So it was almost like going and doing a whole other course, like certain things that she said, like, you know, have a contact sheet information so you know who you've spoken to, write down what you talked about and all this sort of, which I did do, and I did that for many years. That was really good. I remember hearing that from her. So some of the things I wrote were listen to any advice that your peers have to offer. Even if it's not something that you want to implement, it's actually good advice to hear. Okay, that's how you worked. Like, how would I do it in that sort of situation? No advice is bad advice. So, I mean, it might be something that that you think, wow, that's really bad. But then from that, you can then go, okay, well, I don't like how I've done that. This is how I will do it. So you've actually then learned something as well. Where it's like always have a plan, but allow for changes. So you may have an initial plan, but then allow, especially when you're creative, you've got to allow for, there's a lot of external things that come into play. And I think being a creative person, you're also a lot more emotionally vulnerable to a lot of things. Like you look at a lot of singers and that sort of thing. So you need to be careful who you're around, because I know for me, if I'm around someone who's negative, that like I absorb that, and it's or something that's toxic. I now know. I learned a little bit late. It was in my late 20s, but I learned if someone was toxic, I was able to start picking it up, and if I could avoid them at all costs, I would. Long goals, short goals. So you need to have little goals. So daily goals, like wake up, what are you going to do each day? If you hate, so say for instance, you think, oh God, I hate doing my emails. Do that first. Get it out of the way. Then you've got the rest of the day to do the good stuff. Then
do you incorporate into your goals your other like family goals?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not just work goals. When you're talking to goals, it's
everything.
the day. How are you going to?
Because I can't compartmentalise. So my diary, my work diary, even going back, I've kept them since the kids were born. It's got their party invitations to people's, because I've got to incorporate when I need to take time off to take them to a party or to do this, or if they've got something on during the week, and then working, so everything. So you've got your day goals, you've got your weekly goals, your monthly, and then what you plan to do, but within a reasonable limitation. So like if you're trying to lose weight and you go, I have to lose 20 kilos, so no, that's too hard, you're never going to do it, you're going to fail, and you're just going to feel upset yourself. So you go, okay, I just want to lose maybe half a kilo this week, half a kilo next week. So it's like, instead of going up a full ladder, you're going up a rung at a time. Rung at a time. One of the most important things, and this is what I've said to my kids, is love what you do. If you can find a career that you love, you'll never feel like you're working. When I first started, I remember there was months where any money coming in was paying off the machinery that we bought, and I was working casual, and my casual income back then, it was only for like 3 days a week, I think it was, might have been maybe $100 to $200. My first pay packet, I'll never forget, was $75 for a fortnight. I was more excited about that $75 I paid myself.
Okay,
than what I was
what
like.
you were getting.
But if you can find something that you love what you do, that you're passionate about, then then it's not going to feel like work. It'll feel fantastic. You'll love going there. You'll enjoy every aspect of it, which I think then also falls back onto everything else. Like if you love what you're doing, when you're going to work, you're spending however many hours they're doing it. When you come home, you're not going to be angry at the family or depressed. Always keep learning and reinventing yourself. So like learning from what you've done, good or bad. And the thing is like, if you've made a mistake, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a mistake. Because quite often some of those mistakes have actually led to something where it's like, oh, actually that was a mistake, but as I unpicked it. So if I tried to do something new, as I've unpicked it, it stumbled across something that I wouldn't have come across if I hadn't done that. So something new that I created came from something that was by accident. So mistakes, they're not failures. Be around positive people wherever you can. So if you can be around people who, you've got the people who are, so positive people, so people who are not bitchy, people who don't, what do you call it then? They get together and they start gossiping. Stay away from people who gossip. Stay away from people who always feel like they've been, everyone's against them. It's everyone's fault that their life's not, going right. So avoid negative, toxic people. It's okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to everybody, because saying yes to everybody basically means they're not always going to be happy, and then you're not either. It will flow through. And the other thing too is, there was a time when the GC did actually hit, and I found I did get into a slump, and that actually, my clientele dropped, because they could feel, I'm sure they could feel the lack of enthusiasm, and because that was a time when I really thought, am I in the right industry again? That was one of the main ones. So if you're, depending on how you feel, will actually follow through into them. Listen to your clients' wants, needs, so see what they may want, but then work out what they actually need and see how that will fit into what they want. Support network is really, really important. I've always had a support network. I've had a really strong support network, mainly from, my mum. My dad in a way, but in a reverse sort of, a different sort of a way. He wouldn't say directly, but when we used to have we had a corporate arrangement between that. And he basically got me that at the time, while we were building the bridal wear up, he actually said go to see all these people, so that was his way, and actually that was a really good income for a while. But I didn't enjoy it. But it gave us the money to
move into
bridal.
Yes.
So now we're just solely bridal. And I think one of the other most important things is know your worth. I remember watching something on Oprah where she said people make the mistake of paying all the employees first and there's no money left for them. You have to pay yourself first, or you have to pay yourself and everybody else. Ask for help. So it's not a bad thing to actually ask for advice or help, whether it be from wherever. You know, I used to think that asking for help meant that oh my god, I can't think of the word.
A sign of weakness?
Yes, if you can do it debt free, it's great, because a lot of people will go, they'll have a shop front, which it, say for instance, for example, shop front. Before you've even opened the doors, you're X amount in
the lease.
In the lease. So if you can actually have a job that can support you while you set up your career, and then once your career takes off,
and then move into
it, then you're not having to worry about starting up a business and worry about paying off all those debts at the same time. And the other really important thing is to be uniquely you. If you just follow the crowd, and so say, okay, influencers, you see all these people who are influencers, they're like, oh great, well I'm going to be like that person, so I'm going to. They've done it. To try to copy them, it's not going to work. You need to be you, and then you'll be appreciated for being who you are. If you just are like the everyday run of the mill, then you're going to get lost with everybody else, and you're just going to become like a robot or into this big void. But if you show who you are and you go down your track, especially now because people are open to more creative ideas. When I was in high school, and one of the things was I wanted to be a fashion designer, and people said to me, well, do this so that when that doesn't work, because you can't get an income off that, you've got this to fall back onto. When I left year 12 and I tried to find full-time work, I got it and I hated it. Absolutely. I was a clerk for an accountant in a car yard. And you know me, that is so not me. But in saying that, being the clerk helped me with the bookkeeping. But I literally felt like a robot. I felt dead. And I remember Mum saying to me, why don't you get back into doing dresses? And I'm like, what? I've just done that whole education just to do what I've already done. And then I had more time to think about it, and then later on as it evolved into what it is now. I went to a school reunion, 20-year school reunion, and I had one of my nemesis say to me, oh, I hear you're a fashion designer. And I had to sort of let that go over my head. It was hard, but
but the new Helena did.
Yes, the new Helena did. Yes.
No, that's amazing advice. Like I'm so glad I've got that recorded. There's a lot of really good stuff there. When you said be uniquely you, sometimes that can be quite scary because you're quite vulnerable being you. How do you overcome that vulnerability to be you? Or is there advice?
Okay, I found one of the best ways for me to be uniquely me is, so for instance with the fashion magazines, when I said to you I'd feel not worthless, but I'd feel like I wasn't in the same league as them because I'd be constantly comparing myself to them. The best way I found to be uniquely me is actually hone in on what works for me. Is actually almost closing myself off to reality. So when I say I keep the negativity out, I try to avoid, I do a little bit of reading in the morning, like what's happening, but I basically switch off to there's so much negativity that's on the news. They only want to promote bad things. They only want to have a go at somebody or saying, this water that, or they very rarely ever talk about something that's good or happy or whatever. So to be uniquely me, I actually had to almost, actually I do, I say it, it's true, I do, I live in a bubble. I actually have my little bubble of happiness. And I found that being in my bubble of happiness, I choose who comes into that. And whether it be friends, whether it be husband, children, children's friends, this environment here is like my happy zone.
Yeah.
When I extend out of that, which is not very often, I always make sure that I remain positive. So I might be driving along, and I'm just sort of going a little bit off the subject, and you've got all these crazy people like beeping horns because someone's cut somebody off or something. Yeah. And it's still part of unique with me. I try to remain calm and happy, not let that affect me, so that when I'm here, and I have all these negative things that are, because they just love the tall poppy syndrome. When these negative things are happening, if I don't let that invade my happy space, then I can let my brain and my hands explore. And I will literally, like Tony's come home, my husband's come home a few times and said, "Oh, have you heard about blah blah blah?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? Like, look what I've done. I've done this, and I've experimented with this, and I don't know what's been going on." So I think you need to be honest with yourself and what, like, so say with the children, when I say to them, be who they are, love what they do, and to say, for instance, with my son, he's gone into a field that he loves, and he's then developed this sort of atmosphere and everything around his friends and all that sort of stuff, which I call a bit, it's really geeky, but geek is in now, it's very Dungeons and Dragons. Yes. But he's developed that little bit of uniquely part of him, so I then focus on with me, and same with my daughter. She's now realised what she loves to do, and is now focusing on that, and I can see her start to blossom.
Yes.
And I try to give them advice. They often still have to learn from their own experiences, even though you think, I've done that, why don't you just listen to me so you don't have to do that? My kids are exactly like me. They have to learn from their mistakes. I think if the older version of me went back to tell the younger version of me, do this, this and this, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
But it's that experience that you then draw on, because even though you're saying it might be a mistake, but you grasp the experience from it.
So even really bad, so even with really bad experiences where the one where we had to involve the solicitor and the police and everything, I literally lost about 5 kilos in about 3 or 4 days because I couldn't even sleep. But from that, I then try to try to focus on what can I bring out of that. What was the silver lining? The silver lining was I ended up with a fantastic contract in layman's English, not that was difficult to read. When I went to the police, knowing that I was actually in the right, made me realise, oh wow, so hopefully this won't happen again, but it has happened in the past where brides try to take advantage of you, and it happens in other industries as well, where I can stand my ground and know that what I've done is right. But it'd be unique with me. Sorry,
no, that's okay. So it's the vulnerabilities that come with being standing out as you, as yourself, as opposed to sitting back in the crowd and just being one of. How do you have answered that? How do you protect yourself from that? So you create your own space,
and also being around other people who are creative like you. So when we do things like photo shoots, and you're around other people who are also creative like you, who are also happy. It's a happy industry. We're not in like funerals or whatever, you know.
So you find your people.
Yeah, exactly.
And create your space and make choices that are going to enhance what you need. Yeah. That's excellent. Now, I do have 2 more questions if you're okay with that. Let me just find them. Okay, so this one is a little bit more taking you outside.
Actually, another thing about the uniquely you, I think if you try to be something that you're not, it won't work, and people will eventually see through it.
So you're, I won't use the word fake, you're not artificial, what's the word? Inauthentic. And you can't maintain that inauthenticity.
No. And actually
it's hard work.
And also now with social media, it's not like what would be what you saw in a magazine back when I was a teenager, because literally, like, you know, you'd see back then you had Claudia Schiffer and that, and you went, wow, this is what they look like in real life, because you didn't really know of photoshopping, you know. But if you're not authentically you, especially with social media, you're going to be found out so quickly. And it does work against you. And the thing is people want you to be authentically you. Like this new generation that's out now, they are wanting like, you know, the Gen X, we had to do this a certain way. You know, when we started work, you had to wear the power suit of the 80s and all that. But in being authentically you can be a chef with tattoos in your face, piercings through your face and whatever, because the uniqueness of you is what's actually now attractive.
Yes.
So being you is much better than trying to be somebody else.
And I think as a person, it kind of goes back to being whole you as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, it's...
And you're not happy when you're trying to be someone else.
That's right. No, you're not. You can. So when you're encouraged to be just yourself. And, that's good. So I'm going to take you outside of your career for a bit. And so I'm just going to introduce you. So I'm a mother of 3 hyperactive boys.
Really?
As you know. And because they're so active, I've used sport as their outlet. And I use that to provide opportunities for their character development. And so using those external opportunities as character development has then laid the foundation for their career development. So
which has been fantastic.
Yeah, for them. Yeah. So and I found like doing that, I can do that for others. I can't. I'm really struggling doing that for me. But I also know that you did Taekwondo until injuries stopped you from doing that. So my question is, so leading into that, so doing that development for my children, it was very intentional, and I know it was successful. Now you've done sport, and injuries have stopped you from doing that. Are you aware of how your Taekwondo experiences have contributed to your personal development? Not just in your career development, but I feel it has probably overflowed into that, but into your personal development.
Actually, it's been a major personal development, because from that, I have got, out of our little ladies group of 4, 2 of them I would never have met if I hadn't done Taekwondo. Taekwondo helped me grow as an individual. I'm not a team player. I'm still not a team player. But
and that's why Taekwondo's perfect.
Because you've just got the one.
None of us.
Yeah.
That's why we.
But having just that one other person, because you'd be with one person. Actually, one of the good things is like when you say, you know, you'd let yourself down with sport. Is I found having a partner, I'd be less likely to cancel, because not that I didn't want to let myself down. I quite easily let myself down by not showing up. But I didn't want to let my partner down, because if I didn't show up, then that person would have no one to train with. But Taekwondo gave me, oh my God, it gave me so much with the kids. It's something that we did together, even though I embarrassed the hell out of them. I think when they look back now,
we have a right to embarrass our children.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, I think probably Connor knows more so than maybe Tahana, because he's at that other end, he's over that 22, 23-year-old. I think being able to share that time with the kids has, I think, ingrained in them. I was told actually when my son was born, way back when he was born, I remember having a conversation saying, oh my God, I hope he doesn't turn into one of these kids that goes in graffitis and rolls and a lady said to me, she actually had 2 boys at the time, she said keep them occupied with sport, and I wasn't a sporty person back then, not very sporty, so we kept them busy. But then being able to do the sport together as a family, so even when we would go and do, even though Tony didn't do the sport with us, he was always there when we went to competitions. It was a family thing. It was something that we all did together. And there are even times I remember when I remember once when I was going for one of my gradings, and I could hear, especially my son, because he was one of the trainers, and he said, "Come on, Mum, I know you can do it." Like just that. That was really good. Knowing that I had the strength to be able to push myself further in something that was really physically hard. Like I just thought that was fashion. So my goal when I was asked a question at Taekwondo, what are you most looking forward to when you get your red belt? And I was like going, it was my dobok having the black. So fashion even with my Taekwondo uniform.
And I remember your creative doing the you're the only person who's done it, the pattern to music.
Yes. I found it easy to remember, and I wanted it to be something different. And it's funny, every time I hear that song, I try to remember my pattern.
You break into the pattern.
I do, I try to, but I've forgotten bits of it. I don't know that bit.
I remember you trying to teach me to the music.
Yeah, because you're the other side of the brain. So, but also that helped develop my strengths in other things, and the friendship groups. I think even though, but also again with the kids, so like I'd pick them up from school. It wasn't like say taking them swimming where they're out doing swimming. Sometimes I even had my son teaching me, because he was one of the instructors, teaching me certain patterns, and I'm looking at him not as my son but going, wow, that was really, you made that really easy. But unfortunately we weren't allowed to spar, which actually was a good thing. We weren't allowed to spar together because I would get upset at him and tell him he was going to have ice cream for dessert if he didn't let me win. So we weren't allowed to spar together because I was being a bit unfair.
I'm going to take some advantage somewhere.
Yeah, so that was a really good time when we all got to do that together.
And do you see any of that sport development, has that ever flowed into your career development?
I've actually taught some of my brides how to defend themselves.
Oh wow!
On certain things.
Oh really?
Yes. If their husband isn't crying at the wedding or whatever, and when they walk down the aisle, just do this to their wrist. And, has it developed my? I don't know. It was definitely, especially I know when I was really fit, and that it was definitely a part of. So again, because I can't compartmentalise, it flowed through. But I can't think of anything. Actually, I was like even the whatever my clients. I remember one of the girls. She was not a client. She was an employee. She was a trainee. I actually got her to come to Taekwondo with us, and I was trying to teach her some stuff. I can't think of anything else though.
So development in way of knowing because you're saying. When Con was saying, come on, I know you can do it. So you know your strengths. Do you think that also maybe helped you identify that, yes?
I think it made me more confident. And actually with having to remember the patterns did actually help with memory.
Okay.
With work, with memory, because I don't know how it worked, but when you had to remember all your patterns and everything, or maybe it's just that stage in my life, but my memory was a lot better, and it would help me even when we were doing things like so when we were doing like the parades and stuff, and the models had to do certain things. It definitely helped with that, I think.
That's excellent.
And I was actually fitter as well, so I was able to do a lot more.
Yes.
Like I know when we had the expos and we'd have to like run up and down the stairs, and believe it or not, it's actually a lot of hard work changing the models out the back. So, but it was also something that was good too, was when I was talking to people, they were like, oh wow, they thought that, I was prim and proper and didn't do anything like that. So
and then here you are, Taekwondo, which is so opposite to
exactly.
what people think.
Yes, it's exactly the opposite, yes.
So it kind of once again rounds you off.
It did. It really, it helped with if I had a stressful day too.
Okay.
It really helped with that because of the exercise.
Yeah. So it did play into
absolutely.
Into your not just who you are, but strategies on how to cope with
well, if you can't concentrate and you can't think clearly, then that affects what you're going to do.
I have one last question. I would never make a good interviewer.
Because I go off track all the time and I sometimes forget.
Okay, now this one's quite different. So I noticed on your website that you have a logo and it states diverse, inclusive, I know you'll know this, accepting, welcoming, safe space for everyone. I would like to ask you, what does this mean to you in terms of your values? Okay. So when we were raising our children, we taught them to treat everybody equally. Whether it didn't matter what their race was, or the colour of their skin, what their sexual orientation was, because there was a lot of negativity, there still is a lot of negativity, and just to treat we grew up where you think back to like women are lucky now. They had to put into the constitution that women were allowed to vote. So we were a minority back then. They're only now learning, like when I was growing up as a teenager, you were either
heterosexual or you were bi or you were gay. There was only 3 things. Oh, okay, sorry. They were the main ones. And then obviously transvestite. Now they have realised, going into 2023 now, that there are multiple things, and there are societies like the I think it's a Native Indian American who never saw themselves as male or female or both.
Okay.
And we've got that on there to show people that it doesn't matter. I don't care what your sexual orientation is, which is basically what all of those reference. I'll treat you exactly the same. Coming in here, I'm not going to shun you for being who you are, as long as who you are is not illegal, which none of those are, and it's not hurting anybody who's an adolescent. To me, why am I putting you down or thinking of this particular minority as wrong? Like back, there was a movie we watched where the person who actually deciphered the Nazi code was gay, and it was a movie that we watched about with who had Cumberbund doing the main thing. He ended up being, it's based on a true story, and even though he actually deciphered the Nazi code, he ended up being chemically castrated, and then he committed suicide because him being gay was abnormal. You know, and he did this thing that saved the world. And yet his his sexual orientation overtook, and he ended up committing. It's like, it's just so sad. It's just wrong. I don't think anybody has the right to put another person down. And I often think that they sometimes do because it's their own insecurities, or it could be the way they've been raised. So you look at things like with the current war, 2 wars. You've got the one between Ukraine and Russia. You've got another one now between Israel and the Gaza Strip. And unfortunately, I mean, I know this is not a part of that, but unfortunately, it's not going to stop because they just, the next generation are raised exactly the same. So unless we can start to show, so having that sign there shows that it's only something new I've put up, which my daughter asked me to do. I actually said to her, people know that when they know me, they'll know that, as she said, but Mum, people are still too scared or feel too ashamed to ask. You know, so she's having that there, they know that is a safe place to come to ask. And I said, but if they go back and look at, I said, but I want to treat everyone equal. And she goes, yes, but they may not see that. So by seeing that, like if they go back and they'll see previous clients where I have had several same-sex clients, but by having that, especially when she explained it to me, because my daughter is non-binary, so it's actually a they, them. Still keep forgetting that they have been put down for so long that by having that, they're like, oh great, I don't have to ask.
They already know.
They already know.
They're
it's
safe.
Like I mean, what heterosexual will go to a place and go, oh, you know, is it okay to?
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
why?
that's right. Yeah. So, and it shouldn't even come into.
No, it shouldn't.
So it's showing then that they're treated with dignity here. Yeah.
Which is what they should be treated with all the time.
And it's a shame that you have to actually express that.
It's really sad. It's just, you know. And actually, the other thing too is one of my son's closest friends. He's gay, and he's like, I've adopted him as like my second son. He's just lovely. He's just such a lovely person.
They're a person, and
that's how they should be treated. Yeah.
And just on that, because the course that I'm doing has, I don't just notice it talks about global citizenship, and there's a lot of different definitions, and but I just want to pull this out. I said, while there are many different definitions, it's whether it's a choice and a way of thinking that impacts the communities locally, in your city, region, state, nation, and internationally. And for many people, it's the connection between the local and the global. So I like to think of it as being able to identify with the universalities of the human experience and your sense of responsibility towards other humans. So you've pretty much answered this. So just wonder, is there anything else you'd like to add? So what is your view on being a global citizen, and how has that view impacted your career?
You got a question?
I have, and I can't do any more to this. I have a Promark credit of 78